As always, I am so happy to have Dr. Michael Jones with us, all the way from New York. Is that right? We always go by New York time.
Well, I'm in Indiana, but we are on New York time in
Oh,
Indiana.
okay. Okay, cool. So Dr. Jones is a very well-known Catholic, and we are talking about we're working in unity to bring back morality to the West, so that it doesn't break down. That's the short version. I want to introduce myself, which I haven't been doing. I've stopped putting my name and I've put something that's more important, which is Ahmadi, helpful Ahmadi, which is my intentions, the point of the whole show, to make a difference, not just have debates. And an Ahmadi Muslim, very quickly, is this might be shocking in many ways. All Muslims and Christians are waiting for Jesus' return. I believe he's already come, but not physically, but metaphorically, because that's what Jesus in the Bible would have believed as well. And that's a whole discussion. But the short version for people who do know the Bible, he didn't think Elijah came physically. He said Elijah's second coming was John the Baptist. So we could talk about that at some point. And the reason why that's important, it's not just theological. We Ahmadi Muslims believe we are here to save the world, and we expect World War III to come, and then the real rejuvenation of the world or rebuilding of the world will come. But that's a very quick introduction, and all the prophecies regarding the second coming of Jesus have occurred for those who are interested. So maybe we'll talk about that at some point. And the last thing I'll say about us is the way I engage everybody is that we have love for all and hatred for none. So if you ever search love for all, hatred for none, you'll find out a lot about Ahmadi Muslims. So today we're talking about how we've always been talking about how similar we are, but I want to bring that to bring some more theology into that and ask the question: did Jesus worship Allah? That's a fundamental question, I suppose. But also, I put on the YouTube thumbnail two women, one wearing a hijab, like a Muslim veil, and a nun, also covered up very modestly. And I said, same God, same rules. So that's kind of the vibe of what we want to discuss. And I suppose the last thing I want to say before we get started, before we play some of these videos, is I'm not even trying to debate. I'm trying to just engage. And I will put some searching questions, but I'm not going to keep coming back. And we can say, let Dr. Jones share his point of view. So I think a picture or a video is worth 1,000 words, and I think they're impactful. So I want to show how close Islam and Christianity were in the past, and we've just moved away from it. The only reason why it's foreign is because Jesus has become foreign to Christians, is the short way I'll put it. Let's play this first video of Christian women 100 years ago. This has been turned into color, but let's just play it.
What's fascinating is the girls' hair is all covered, so women do not show long hair. So you see the girls, the shawls are completely covering them, and you don't see their hair at all, you just see their faces. There's all this debate now about the hijab and about women covering their hair, and we forget that. We've lost that as part of our culture. Like 100 years ago, you wouldn't walk out in the streets of Lancashire with your hair down.
So I've talked a lot. I'm going to play a couple of videos. I want your reaction to the first video.
Yeah, what you're saying is that traditionally women cover their heads. You're absolutely right. And what we had over the 20th century was an erosion of that. I'll go you one step further. Men traditionally covered their heads. Whenever they went out, they'd put a hat on. If you go to New York Times advertising, clothing advertising at the beginning of the 1960s, every man is dressed suit, but he also has a hat on. The man who changed this forever was John F. Kennedy, who went to his inauguration without wearing a hat because he had a big, full head of red hair. So he wanted to show that off to the crowd. I saw John F. Kennedy drive down the street in his convertible limousine when I was in Philadelphia in 1960. And the thing that struck me was his red hair. He had that brilliant kind of red hair. So you're right. Traditionally, all women covered their heads when they were in public. And what you're seeing is Islam is simply holding on to a tradition that the West has abandoned.
Can I just clarify though? Is it just tradition or is it religion? Is it Christianity that women used to cover their hair? Because I would say it is.
There is a statement in St. Paul that said women should cover their heads in church, but that had nothing to do with going outside and covering your heads. If you're talking about England and Ireland, it's kind of cold there, and it makes sense to cover your head. So it's not really a religious prescription when you're talking about outside. It's just the normal dress, and there was a normal type of modesty, a traditional type of modesty that women observed by covering their heads.
Yeah, as I said, I don't want to dig too much, but I would say Jewish women cover their hair as well. Saint Mary, mother of Jesus, covered her hair, as all the depictions show her that way. And so Jews think they're supposed to cover their hair, and Christianity is a continuation of that teaching. What would you say to that?
No, as I said, in church, St. Paul said that. There was obviously at that time, that's the way women dressed. St. Paul wanted to continue that tradition. And so he mentioned that, but I'm saying everybody was like this. It was not religion. It was civilization. It's like you have an analogy I could bring to you is Africa. Okay. When the Catholic missionaries arrived in East Africa, women were bare-breasted. They walked around with no covering on their breast because it was a warm climate and so on and so forth. The first president of Tanzania, Julius Nyerere, his father, picture of him dressed like an Englishman with a top hat. His wife was standing next to them bare-breasted. That was the beginning of the 20th century.
What's wrong with being bare-breasted? Because the question is, what's the limit? So what's wrong with that?
This is an interesting point. So when the Catholic missionaries came to East Africa, they created schools, and the school had a uniform, and the uniform was a dress. And so the girls put on the dress because it was a Catholic school uniform. And what happened is they never went back. There was something objective about covering your breast or having your breast in public. There was an objective reality that arrived in Africa when the nuns handed out the dresses. They never went back to walking around bare-breasted. So I have friends who are nuns. I said, what happened? She doesn't know. She can't give me an explanation. But there seems to be something objective about women covering their breasts because they don't go back. Africa has not gone back to being bare-breasted.
Well, yeah, maybe. I mean, it depends which country you're talking about. Okay, I like the idea of objective sort of reality rather than subjective or normative behavior. You know, like social norms. What's normal at the moment? That's not objective, and that's why I like religion, because it's objective. It stays the same. These are the rules. Okay, and last thing, maybe I'll move on, because I'll come back to the headscarf later on, maybe, particularly that reference of St. Paul that he said women should cover their hair. Really quickly, because I do want to get to the questions. So next video. So I'm in Jordan. I'm British, but I moved to Jordan. Love Jordan, lovely Muslim country, which also has lots of churches, Christians as well. And Tucker Carlson has been there. And I think there's a lot of ignorance about the relationship between our religions, how similar we are. And that comes through in some of his videos. Have you seen Tucker Carlson in Jordan talking to Christians there?
I have seen short clips of him talking to a priest. I remember seeing that.
Yeah, I can't remember what this one is, but let's do it really quickly.
I was amazed to discover how many prominent, like truly prominent Christian families there are in Jordan. A lot, and you're from one of the most prominent. What's it like to be a Christian in an overwhelmingly Muslim country here?
Well, Christians here in Jordan have always felt, really one and the same with the Muslims in Jordan. And it goes back thousands of years, really, Tucker. So it's always felt like we're really one and the same. Islam is very much an integral part of our culture as Christians here. Yeah, we feel very comfortable.
As Christians here?
As Christians, absolutely.
Yeah, so Christians, Muslims, and Jews in the Middle East have always felt like he says one in the same. We saw more similarities than differences. What's your reaction to that?
Yes, of course it was. And the reason it's not that way anymore is because of the British Empire and the Balfour Declaration, which is basically wanted to create a British colony to secure oil from the Middle East. We're talking about the moment in time when the British Navy switched from coal to oil, and they needed secure oil supplies. And so they promoted this Israeli colony, the Israeli settlement in Palestine, as a kind of beachhead that would secure oil for them. And then it has simply gotten out of control. It has metastasized since that time. So Balfour was at 1917, 48. We have the creation of the Israeli state, and then they're supposed to live together. Immediately, the ethnic cleansing started. Immediately, we had atrocities. Deir Yassin is an example of a village that was exterminated by the Stern Gang, which were a bunch of Jewish terrorists who showed up at the beginning of the state of Israel, and they've been in control of this state ever since.
So you're saying, of course, the religions are at harmony with each other. The only problem is Zionism and politics and materialism, basically, like land grabbing. This is all about oil. The problems in the Middle East have nothing to do with religion. Is that what you're saying?
Religion is weaponized. What the British do is they invariably leave a colony where you have two different groups that they want to fight each other. Every single Ireland was left to English and
we didn't want to
Protestants.
fight each other. The two different groups. Like when the Jews first came, you know this better than I'm sure you know this. That when the Jews first came to the Middle East, to Palestine, the Palestinians literally gave their homes and land, because they're so generous, and they're still really generous right now, to the Jews to use. And then one day they would come back to their homes and they'll be locked, and at gunpoint they would say, leave your own home. That's the real story. There was no reason conflict when they came.
No, they created the conflict. I'm saying every single British colony was conflict. So the conflict in India was between the Muslims and the Hindus. They left that. They couldn't resolve that. The conflict in Nigeria was between Muslims and Christians. The conflict in Ireland was between Catholics and Protestants. The conflict in Canada is between the French and the English. This is standard operating procedure for the British Empire, and it's still at work today. You have an agent provocateur in England by the name of Tommy Robinson. What is his job? His job is to get the English to hate Muslims. Now we have a guy in America called Jake Lang, who shows up in Dearborn with the Koran and a piece of bacon. He's going to rub bacon on the Koran. This is an agent provocateur to divide Christians from Muslims. We don't want these people to get along, and so we have to have them fighting each other. That's the battle that's going on in America right now. And that's why it's great to see Tucker Carlson fighting this narrative.
Easier to control us when we're divided. Divide and rule as usual.
Divide et impera was the rule of the Roman Empire, and that's the British took it over from them.
Cool. Okay. Another video quickly. I think this is a different one. Oh, yes. So I get a little bit more about the connection between Jews and Muslims, but a different angle. He's surprised. Well,
I'm totally confused. Those holy sites don't belong to the state of Israel, which is a political entity of very recent creation. Those holy sites are the center of our religion. They long predate by thousands of years the creation of the state of Israel. So why wouldn't
He's going to be shocked about what the
any
King of
Christian have a
Jordan
right to
does.
visit his own church?
Yeah, I agree.
That's my perspective as the person who's paying for all this.
The Hashemites are very much the custodians of the Christian and the Muslim sites in Jerusalem.
So Hashemite, the Hashim family is the King Jordan, the Jordanian king's family, and he's going to say basically what the King of Jordan does for Christian sites.
And I think maybe that, if you allow me, Tucker, I think that's something that people don't realize, is that a lot of the restoration work that happens there is very much funded personally by the king. I mean, the tomb of Jesus Christ in the Holy Sepulchre was restored by personal donations from King Abdullah. And it says
Wait,
something.
what?
Absolutely, yeah.
The tomb of Jesus was restored by the Muslim king of Jordan?
Yeah, I mean, that's the King of Jordan.
It's kind of a surprise ending to the story, I have to say. I don't think...
So for Muslims, that's normal. Like when Muslims took over Jerusalem, there were no Jews, and the Caliph at that time said, that's really bad. Go and find 80 Jewish families. I think it was 80 Jewish families, and bring them back so they could repopulate the Jewish community in Jerusalem. And there's so many things like that. So he was even asked, you can pray in our church. Though the church, I can't remember the main priest there, and he said no, because he was worried that Muslims might take over the church. And said, no, I'm going to make another mosque because I don't want Muslims taking advantage of Christians in any way in the future. All sorts of things like that. He picked up litter from Christian holy sites immediately with his own bare hands. So this is normal. That it's not at all surprising that a Muslim king would take care of Christian holy sites. We respect all different religions. And even now, the keys to many of the key places for over 1,000 years or something have been in the hand of Muslim families who are happy to do this, to take care of Christian sites. Anyway, what are your thoughts about this? What your reaction?
When I was in Tehran, I went to Mass in Tehran. It was not something hidden. It was a church on the street in Tehran with a cross on the top, clearly identifiable as a cross. They took me there. I went to Mass. Okay, this is not a secret. This is not news to me. I know this. What are we talking about here? We're talking about the revolutionary identity of the Jew that has been in existence for 2,000 years. Sometimes it goes into remission. Sometimes the Jew allies himself with the Muslim. Sometimes the Jew allies himself with the Christian against the Muslim. But we're talking about the Jewish revolutionary spirit that came about when the Jews killed Christ, who is the Logos incarnate. And once you attack the Logos incarnate, which is the order of the universe, you become a revolutionary. And that's what they have been ever since. So the first main manifestation of Jewish revolutionary behavior was Bolshevism, socialism, communism, and then that died out. And now we have the other manifestation, which is Zionism. But we've always got some type of revolutionary ferment going on with the Jewish people.
Okay. Last thing, because I want to play something from New York, because that's your side of the pond, as it were, the Atlantic. Very quickly, because I like this spirit of unity and connection between the faiths. You've got Mamdani again, and this time he's quoting the Bible. And I won't play the whole video because it's a little bit of a long video, but it's nice to hear. And some people are saying he's a better Christian preacher than many Christian preachers.
We are told is the belief in things unseen. Faith that the bus would arrive. Faith that somehow, some way, the rent would get paid. Faith that a leader would place the concerns of the many before the interests of the few. Standing before you today, I think of Deuteronomy 10:17-18, which describes the Lord as one who shows no partiality and accepts no bribes. He defends the cause of the orphan and the widow, and loves the stranger residing among you, giving them food and clothing. And today, my friends, I want to reflect on the third charge, loving the stranger.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So
great.
go on.
Great. I cheered when Mandami got elected because the ADL was dead set against him. The Jews did not want him to be elected. So he's a Muslim, first mayor of a major city in the United States of America. This is a historical moment. I don't think Mandami understands the reality of this historical moment. Why do I say that? 3 ethnic groups in America: Protestant, Catholic, Jew. The Muslims can become the next ethnic group. It fits perfectly in with this religion as your ethnic identity. But you have to get along with the other ethnic groups: Protestant, Catholic, Jew, not this generic kind of stuff. And so he's inaugurated. He does not invite the Cardinal Archbishop of New York to his inauguration. This is unheard of. No one in New York would ever do something like this. Next time around, the new Cardinal Archbishop comes in. He has his own inauguration, and guess who doesn't show up? Mamdani does not show up for the new Cardinal Archbishop. This is a serious mistake, because when you do this, it tells me you don't understand the reality of ethnicity in American politics, the reality of religion as the basis of ethnicity, and you're acting like a left-wing Jew. This is what he tells me. The left-wing Jews are pro-abortion. They hate the Catholic Church. And Mamdani made a mistake. I hope he corrects this mistake.
I mean, generally, he's been really, I would say he's been really understanding and involved with different religious groups. Like, for example, there was a scene where a Christian group, he joined a prayer led by a priest, and he was really respectful, bowed his head down. He even mentioned, this priest mentioned in Jesus's name or something, which, like, we're happy to say in God's name, but like he didn't even flinch. Do you know what I mean? So I think, I'm not sure if it was by purpose, because he didn't seem to be going against any particular group. I don't know, but
this was a mistake. Maybe it was an innocent mistake. Maybe it was intentional. Is he playing up to the left-wing Jews here? Is that his base? Are you trying to show them that you're pro-abortion and you're on your side? You're kind of winking after you do all this nice religious talk. You kind of wink to the Jews and say, I'm really with you. I don't know, but I'm saying he made a mistake and he's going to have to correct that mistake. You cannot be a politician in New York and not attend the Al Smith dinner. That's part of the political reality of New York, the political religious reality. So if you're a friend of his, tell him that he made a mistake and tell him he needs to go.
I don't know him personally. Okay, so let's get into the meat of the show. Why does it? So we're talking about did Jesus worship Allah? What's the point? Who cares about this topic? So I think the core of it is, why does it matter if there is one God or many?
Okay, good question. Okay, if you go to India, there will be 33 million gods. You can't have 33 million gods. It's so absurd, I'm not even going to discuss it.
Sure.
I'm going to say, let's set it down to 2. Zoroastrianism says there are 2 gods. There's a good God and a bad God. That's impossible, because if the good God, if he's good, should destroy the bad God, right? Well, if you can't destroy him, that means God is not all powerful. If you're not all powerful, you're not God. Or maybe he doesn't want to destroy him, in which case he's not good, in which case he's not God. So you can only have one God.
Cool. What does it matter? So it matters logically that you should have one God. What does it matter to human beings in their daily lives?
Okay, you want to go back? You want to go back to Zoroastrianism? You don't understand. There's a guy. There's an Iranian.
No, I get it.
An Iranian. You can't understand the problem of evil. Now, the Iranian, there's a guy, Iranian named Giorgiani, is trying to resurrect the traditional Persian religion, which is Zoroastrianism. And he said, this is a better explanation of evil in the world. No, it's a terrible explanation for evil in the world, because how can you have an evil God? What are you supposed to worship the evil God? How do you worship the evil God? By doing evil? If you're doing evil, you're not good. If you're not good, you're not worshiping God. So you can't have two gods. You can't even have two. That's the problem here. We have in the West, we have lived so long with the idea of monotheism, we don't even think about it anymore. But that's the fundamental reason.
Okay, cool. Just replying. I'm just messaging the group. There's some comments, and hopefully we'll try to get through all the comments after we've got through the questions I've got for Dr. Jones. I would say there's a crisis in religion because people nowadays haven't got a believable God. And if you don't have a believable God, which has got to be one God, one all-powerful God, the ultimate source of everything, the beginning of everything, all-powerful, as you say, not half-powerful, then you can't really believe in God. You can't depend on God. And then you cannot act confidently in your life in any sense. So the idea of one God is really important, and that's always been true for Abrahamic faith, that God emphasizes only one God, one source of power, one thing that you depend on. Otherwise, life becomes really difficult. Which source of guidance do you listen to? So many problems like that. So I think belief in one God is incredibly important. Next question. Copy, paste into the comments, and then I put it on the screen. Okay, how do you feel about this? So the whole discussion we had between me and you really began when I quoted in an email a verse of the Quran. So there's an invitation to in the Quran to followers of the Bible called the people of the book, but some people interpret it as people of any religious book like the Vedas, etc., to believe in one God. Let me quickly quote this, and then I want your feelings on it. This is the verse of the Quran. Say, O people of the book. So it's a command to the Muslims to invite the people of the Bible, because I think book literally means, Bible literally means the book, right?
Yes.
Come to a word equal between us and you, that we worship none but Allah. So it's an ancient name of God, and that we associate no partner with him. So there's no other God, no equal power or anything. And that some of us take not others for gods besides Allah. And so there's no other alternate God, even no equal power, no alternate God. But if they turn away, say we bear witness, the whole quote incomplete, but anyway, but we have submitted to God. So we just do our duty. We've submitted to God ourselves, and we want, the whole point of this invitation is to get people to submit to God. And I would say, what's the point of submitting to God? That's the only way you find peace. I think, was it Martin Luther King said a beautiful thing. He said, what did he say? Something like, it's only until the laws of man are like the laws of God. What was it? I forgot the quote now. It was a beautiful quote. Do you know the one?
No.
Will there be peace on planet? Okay, but maybe I'll find it.
Look,
but anyway,
I agree with you. I agree with you. Christians and Muslims worship the same God. This is the teaching of the Catholic Church. There is only one God. Okay, we worship the same God. How we differ in our understanding of God. That's the difference between. So when you say you worship God, which God do you, what is the God you worship? What is the identity of the God you worship?
The all-powerful, one all-powerful.
Right. So Islam emphasizes the power of God and submission to God's power. Okay. Absolutely. If you get to the beginning of the Gospel of St. John says, in the beginning there was Logos, reason. Logos was with God. Logos is God. This is the fundamental statement of Christian belief, that God is rational. Is that the same God that we share? Because Islam emphasizes the power, and Christianity emphasizes the reason. And
no, I wouldn't say that's fair, because the whole Quran always says people of understanding. People understanding are the ones who, and it gives so many logical and scientific arguments for the belief in God. So I think that might be a misunderstanding between us. I think God expects us to be rational, and being rational leads to belief in one God. And it's the easiest belief, the most rational. Yeah,
I agree with you, but you have the troubled history of Islamic philosophy, which tells a different story. So you begin with someone like Al-Kindi. He starts translating Aristotle. Al-Farabi carries on this tradition. We have the culmination in Avicenna, Ibn Sina, one of the greatest minds in human history, who was known as the physician, but he also tried to deal with metaphysics. And the fundamental metaphysical problem at that time was, how do you have a transcendent God who takes care, who enters into time? Okay, couldn't solve that problem to anyone's satisfaction. And then you have Al-Ghazali come along.
What was the problem? Something about time?
You've got he inherited it from Greek philosophy. Okay. Aristotle said that God is the uncaused cause and the unmoved mover, which means
that's basically the Quran. Basically says that.
So basically, he's totally outside of time. Okay, you have to be outside of time in order to be God. Well, that's good, but how do you deal with us in time then? And so Plato said, well, God is the demiurgos. He's the helper. He's the helper of the people. Well, how do you go from eternity to time? That was not a simple question at this point. Avicenna struggled with it, and he didn't really resolve it. At this point, Al-Ghazali comes in, and he writes a book called The Incoherence of the Philosophers, and basically puts an end to the Mutazilite tradition in Islamic thought. The Caliph says basically, well, no, we're not going to resolve that. Al-Ghazali goes into mysticism, and then you have Suhrawardi again, who goes into...
It's complicated. There's a chapter called Ikhlas, and it talks about the attributes of God and essentially the ultimate cause of all causes. Very simple.
I agree. That's what Aristotle said. It's the uncaused cause and the unmoved mover. Okay? But Aristotle, what did Aristotle and Plato not know? They did not know that the world was created.
Okay.
That changes the whole story in many significant ways. And so you have this attack, the incoherence of the philosophers. You have a withdrawal from philosophical thought. The Asherites take over from the Mutazilites. Avicenna, Averroes, Ibn Rushd, arises in Spain and basically says, well, tries to reconcile these two things again and again, really doesn't succeed. So he says there are two truths. There's the truth of philosophy and there's the truth of religion. They're both true. Well, wait a minute. There's a problem here because Aristotle said the world was eternal, and the Bible says that the world was created in time. How do you resolve that issue? They couldn't resolve it.
Oh, okay. He didn't know there was a Big Bang, hey? Because you said it's eternal.
This was the problem. Yeah. And the only way, so when you get back to the beginning of what I'm saying is we worship the same God, but we have a different understanding of that God. Our understanding is different. And the main difference in understanding is the Trinity. That's the big what should I say, roadblock. That's the one thing that differentiates the Christian from the Muslim. We both believe in one God.
But interestingly, we both agree that there's one God.
Right.
But you say there's let's say complex idea called the Trinity. Okay, cool.
I'm saying that there are three persons in one God, and that's not obvious. I can't ask you to believe that according to natural reason. God had to reveal that about himself in Revelation, and you have to accept it by faith. You cannot reason to three persons in one God. You cannot reason to that.
Okay. As I said, I'm not going to push too much on that debate, but you said God is reason, and reason dictates that 3 does not equal 1. What would be your response?
Good question. Okay. What you're talking about now is after the death of Jesus Christ. There were people, the smartest people in Christianity, the doctors of the church, got together and tried to find out what is the relationship between what is obviously in the Bible. You've given me quotes already later on here.
Yes.
Between
I'm going to quote them in a minute for everybody. Yeah.
Between the will of Jesus Christ and the will of Allah, because there seems to be a difference here. You know, I have come to do the will of my Father.
I'm going to quickly post it for everybody else. So, or is it later on? Yeah. Okay. We'll come back. Yeah. You know what? Since you're bringing it up, I'll bring it up because for everybody's benefit. So quickly post it in. So there's a question of this. There's really 3 in 1, and they're just 3 different maybe attributes of God. But how can those 3 different attributes have different wills without being different gods?
Right. They're not attributes.
For example, Jesus mentions in the Bible that his will is different to the Father, which is supposed to be God. So, yeah.
He also says the opposite. He says the Father and I are one. He says the opposite. And so you've got these people reading the Bible, reading the scripture and thinking, how do these parts fit together? How is it that the Father and the Son, what is the relationship between the Father and the Son? And so for 300 years, you've got the smartest minds in Christendom trying to figure out this puzzle. The death of Jesus Christ, 30.
Would you say it's a simple solution? Because Islam, the definition of Islam resolved this problem. Like there are 2 wills. There's God's will and our will. And a Muslim is one who submits their will. So that's what prophets have always done. So they don't really, I'm trying to get to a stage where I don't have a will other than God's will. And that's the whole point of this journey in life is to be at one with God, to have no other will other than God's will. And I think that would be your belief, right? You don't have your own will. You want to submit to God's will, right?
Absolutely. Because God's will is rationality. And I have a duty to be rational. And so I have to submit to God's will. Dante said, in his will, our peace.
Yes.
In absolutely. His will, our peace. And I agree with that. Okay.
So you're saying, in other words, for maybe easier to understand words, you only find peace, inner peace, as people say nowadays, when you submit your will to God.
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
That's right.
Cool.
That's
a beautiful thing.
Right. But what is the common denominator? It's logos. It's not as if I have to figure it out. Like, what's the will today? Let me check on X, what God's will is today. We know his will is to be rational because St. John said, logos is God. So if you're following rationality, you know you are doing the will of God. The first practical reason with the 10 Commandments, they're negative, but I mean, these are guideposts to let you know what the will of God is.
Trying to find my question. Where was the Father? Okay, I'll paste it again. So I want to quickly go back to a couple of quotes. You know what? I'm going to do a better version. What I'm going to do, because I was thinking I shouldn't just keep trying to post it in the comments, the question. So I'll do it like this for a minute. Okay, so I've got this document. Anybody can see in the description below. I always produce a document, and you can even see some of the videos as well. And we are currently here. Do you agree the Bible taught there's only one God called Allah? References are, for example, in the Old Testament, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one," Deuteronomy 6:4. And Jesus essentially quotes and says the most important teaching is, "Hear, O Israel, our Lord, the Lord our God, the Lord is one." So this is incredibly important. God, we've always been in Islam, we're taught the same thing. This is the most important teaching. God is one, for the reasons we've already given, and to continue this idea that God is Allah, the ancient name of God. Jesus spoke a language called Aramaic, and the word for God is Allah, and there's references for that. And even Arab Christians, the kind that you saw talking to Tucker Carlson earlier on, happy to call God Allah in their Bible. What's your response to that?
Yes, I agree. Allah is the word for God. So God is one. There's one God. You're absolutely right. The difference is the doctrine of the Trinity was saying there are three persons in one God. And that's so the quote you have at the bottom of the page there, Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours be done. What's going on there? This is Jesus Christ at the moment of his passion, where he's suffering. This is real suffering because he has a real body. He is true God and true man. So he's got a body and he's suffering, but at the same time, he's God, and he understands his relationship is the relationship of a son to a father. And so that transcends, you have both of these in that one statement. Okay? I'm suffering, but I know I have this destiny because I am the son of God the Father, begotten, not made. And so I'm going to go through with it in spite of all the suffering.
So was he temporarily not God at that point in time?
No, he's true. Will. He's always God and always man. And he expresses that duality in that statement. If he were totally God, if he were only God, he could not suffer. He would not have a body. You can't suffer without a body, okay? He's got both the body and the soul of God, the three persons in one God. And so therefore, he has this, be able to have this conversation with God the Father. That's what that's about. And so you had 300 years of Christians thinking, what is the meaning of this sentence here? How can he, at one point he says, the Father and I are one. And then another time he says, not my will, but thy will be done. How do you reconcile these, what seemingly contradictory statements in the Bible?
Cool. So yeah, you bringing up this other question I had for you. When Jesus said that I and the Father are one, John 10:30, does that mean Jesus is God? Or does he mean he's a prophet? Because prophets do only the bidding of God. They forget themselves and they do what they're told. And that's mentioned actually earlier on in the same sort of section, John 9:17, where it says literally, he's considered a prophet. And that's what we as Muslims consider a prophet of God. The Quran says he doesn't speak of his own from himself. He just says what he's told to do. That's what Prophet Muhammad did as well. So their wills are one because we negate our own will. That's the whole point of Islam.
That's metaphoric, but this is literal. I and the Father are one. That's exactly true. So they are one in being. Okay. If he were a prophet, he would be a creature. If he were a creature, he would not be God. His relationship to God is not made. Creatures are made by God. They are created by God. He is not created by God. He is begotten by God, as a son is to the Father. That's the difference.
But earlier on in that same passage, you can say in John 9:17, he is called a prophet. Jesus is called a prophet.
Well, the people at that time saw him in the line of the prophets. That was the vocabulary they had. He was immediately preceded by John the Baptist, and they kept, people would come to John the Baptist and say, are you the one? Are you the Messiah? And he says, no, I'm not. I'm unworthy to loosen the sandals on his feet. So he's a creature. John is a creature. A prophet is a creature. He's born as a human being created by God. This is different. This is begotten by God. This is the Son of God. That has a different type of relationship, which he comes out in this thing. So they're one in being. That's what he says. We are one in being, but we have a different relationship. I am the Son of the Father, begotten by him.
Sure. I'm just trying to understand, because you're a very reasonable and logical person, the way I can possibly imagine the Trinity is that there are different views. There are three different views of a single God. Obviously, I can't really accept that because the different views cannot be fighting each other or have different wills. Are you saying, when you say there are three different persons, what does that mean? I'm not going to dig too much, but I'm just
I'll explain. I'll agree with what you're saying. You cannot imagine this.
Oh, okay.
There is nothing within human experience that will allow us to imagine or to enter into a being, an understanding of God that is beyond our understanding. This is God revealing himself in a way that we could never figure out. We have to accept this on faith. We have to.
Okay,
so
cool.
you can't imagine it. You're right. You can't imagine it.
So the thing I wanted, go on, sorry. Okay. So I really like it when Christians preach the teachings and rules of behavior, because I think that's lost in Western Christianity. It's just like Christianity is a club, but it's not like do anything. And I want to come back to that because I think that's what would give Christians their strength back. Like, this is what we stand for. It's not just a label. So my question is, do Islam and Christianity have the same God and the same rules? It would make sense if it was the same God, it would be the same rules. And just to kind of give some credence to that, here's a quote that you talked about when St. Paul says, "For if a woman does not cover her head, let her also have her hair cut off. But if it is disgraceful for a woman to have her hair cut off or shaved, let her cover her hair." Basically, it says women should cover their hair, which is what we saw in the first video. You say it's only in the church. I would say it's not just in the church because, Mary would always cover her hair. That's the Jewish tradition, and there's nothing to say that was a bad teaching. I would say it's a great teaching because women's hair is sexual. Women really value it.
Right. All right. That's kind of far down the food chain here. Whether this is custom. You ask, are there the same rules? Yes, there are the same rules. The moral law is the essence of these rules, and it's written on the human heart. It is part of rationality. Now, the question is whether we can articulate that clearly, whether a culture articulates that clearly or obscures it, that's another matter. But it's written on our heart. We know that we are rational creatures. We know that we have to choose good over evil. We know that sometimes we choose evil over good. These are all an indication that it's written on our heart. So at a certain time in history, when God is talking to man, he'll write it down, as he did for Moses, which was the 10 Commandments, which are the basic rules. Just you can deduce this simply from living in the world, that you shouldn't steal from people, okay? And that adultery is a bad idea, and you shouldn't lie. But God reinforced this by making it revelation as well. So he communicated this to us. These are the rules. Now, when you get to a point where civilization, history evolves, we can drift apart and we come up with emphasizing different rules. Some were more important to other people, but that's the fundamental issue. If you're talking about the heart of man, yes, we have the same rules written on our hearts.
Cool. Yeah, I do agree that there's a certain human nature and certain rules that we all need. So 2 quick questions. I think, does your wife cover her hair? I think she does, right? I think you mentioned something like that.
When it's cold out.
Oh, it's not like a religious thing.
No.
Oh, okay. Because there's a Catholic whose wife does.
There is a group of Catholics go to the Tridentine Mass. They went in before Vatican II. Every woman wore a veil in church. After Vatican II, they didn't wear them anymore. So that was part of the change in custom. And so the people
just
who
custom,
are going,
not religion, then.
I would say it's custom. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. And the other question was the thing that Mamdani said about just emphasizing one teaching, which I think is a beautiful teaching, which is take care of the stranger. Take care of people generally, people who, even if you have no connection with them, What do you think about that? He mentioned gave a biblical quote. How do you feel about that? Because that's certainly a Islamic teaching
Yes.
to take care of the neighbor who's close and neighbor who's far, which the neighbor who's far is basically another term for a traveler of sorts.
This is in the parable of the Good Samaritan. There was a man traveling down to Jerusalem. He got beat up by robbers. He's left for dead, lying on the side of the road. The priest comes down and he sees him and he walks to the other side of the road and doesn't help him. Then the Levite comes down and he walks to the other side of the road. Now, these are God's chosen people, okay? They are religious people. They should have helped him. Then the Samaritan comes down, okay? That's like a Muslim. This is people that are not the same of us. And the Samaritan takes care of this poor person lying on the side. And then Jesus said, who is my neighbor? I'll give you an instance here, a contemporary instance. Just last week, Catholic ladies stood up to the Jews in this presidential panel on religious liberty, okay? There were two bishops on the panel, Bishop Barron and Cardinal Dolan. They didn't say anything. They did not defend Carrie. Who defended Carrie? The one person on the panel who defended Carrie was a Muslim. This is exactly out of that parable of the Good Samaritan. This is exactly what Jesus was talking about.
Wow. I didn't know that. I mean, I've heard about Carrie, but I didn't know a Muslim defended her, because I think she
was
got all the attention.
The only one on the panel to defend that woman was a Muslim woman. The only one who defended. Two bishops said nothing, did not defend her.
Wow, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so we agree that we have the same teachings. Just to kind of maybe labor the point, but don't you think one of the things that Christianity is suffering from, or Catholicism, whatever you want to call it, is not emphasizing actions? These are the things you must do to be a good Christian, Catholic, whatever. I think those are really important. What do you think? Do you have the same sentiment?
We are going through a crisis right now. There's a crisis in a lot of different ways. And the problem is that there is insecurity about what we believe. What we believe as Catholics, largely because of the sexual revolution. It called into question one of the fundamental bases of culture, which is chastity in women. Okay, we have been living through an experiment where it's a Jewish experiment, okay, but the overturning of the sexual constitution has had a disastrous effect on my generation. I am a baby boomer. I was 17 years old when the Vatican Council ended. This insecurity makes decisive action impossible. I'm going to go back to those two bishops. They have been crippled by a false understanding of the relationship between Catholics and Jews. So they can't speak out. They've internalized the commands of their oppressors, which says you're an anti-Semite if you criticize Jews. This is precisely the crisis right now. Carrie said, said this to the rabbis, don't impose your religion on me. I am not a Zionist. As a Catholic, I do not have to believe Zionism, and don't call me an anti-Semite if I don't believe in Zionism. That the bishops should have agreed with her, but they're crippled by this failed experiment called Catholic-Jewish dialogue, which began after Vatican II.
I think the failed experiment is liberalism. They've decided that, freedom is the most important principle.
There are many failed experiments. There are many failed experiments out there, okay? Yeah. But I'm talking specifically for the one for Catholics was this failed experiment of treating the Jews as if they're friends. They are not our friends. They are our enemies. And Carrie quoted that passage. St. Paul says the Jews are the people who killed Christ, and they are enemies of the entire human race. That is what Catholics believe from Scripture.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And would you agree that Muslims haven't been crippled in the same way because they're not ashamed of their beliefs?
Look, it depends on what you mean. Now, if you're talking about Muslims living in Saudi Arabia or living in some Muslim country where everyone supports their beliefs, or even the suburbs of Paris where there's a huge Muslim community. Okay, that's one thing. But I find that when the Muslims go to a place like a European country, they give up their religion. They become, for the most part, they become atheists because they can't reconcile faith and reason. I've seen a lot of this happening.
How are the Muslims taking over the UK, as a lot of people rightly claim? They can't have taken over the UK by giving up their beliefs. That doesn't make sense.
You're right. I'm saying if you import enough of them so that they have basically critical mass, as they do in the suburbs of France, you will basically create a Muslim enclave in there that will not assimilate. The question is, when you assimilate, are you going to be able to hold on to your beliefs? This is a serious question. And when you're by yourself, when you don't have the support, I'm talking about Iranians that I've talked, like Iranians in America. They come over here. I don't see them as a particularly religious group of people. Most of the Iranians in America hate the Islam. They all left because of the Shah. They have not been able to transfer their religion to a new environment. This is not typical of Muslims. We have an Irish priest was saying the woman in Ireland raised in the 1980s in a peasant Irish Catholic culture. She comes to the university. She doesn't know what to say. The university undermines her beliefs and she just gives up her faith. This is not typical to Muslims. It's a problem with modernity and all religions, where science is the official religion of modernity.
Okay. So let's talk about each other's religions. My favorite verse in the Bible, I say there's many favorites, but one of the ones that impact me a lot is fear of God is the root of all wisdom, which is similar to the Quran, which says, those who fear God's judgment, that means judgment day, will have both paradises. That means you have paradise in this world and next. And the reason why that's really important to me is because although God mostly in every chapter of the Quran always talks about how he's the most gracious, the merciful, he always talks about how nice he is, but it's a very important psychological element to have in the Quranic teaching, which is that we have as human beings, we're constantly forgetting that we're going to die. It's like as if we think we're going to live forever the way we behave. And then we never think we're going to meet God and we're going to be accountable for our actions. And so having that fear, that constant fear that God is watching me and I'm going to be judged for it, stops you from making stupid actions. And when you start making good actions, because all God wants you to do is do good things for you, you're going to make this life paradise in this life. You're going to have paradise in this life, and the next life is going to be a reflection of this life. That's how God describes paradise, as a similar tasting fruit is described in the Quran. The next life is similar to this life. So if you have hell in this life, which plenty of people are experiencing, that's why so many people commit suicide in the West, then you'll have hell in the next. What do you think about that understanding of that biblical verse, and what's your favorite Quranic verse?
Right. So you're right. If you want to have a successful life, you have to be reasonable. You have to follow God's law. God is Logos. You have to follow his commandments. You have to act to the best of your ability as a reasonable creature. But oftentimes you don't, in spite of your best intention. And at that point, you need mercy, which is the beginning of the Quran. The beginning of the Quran, the first surah of the Quran, is about mercy.
First verse, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
There's a profound, absolutely profound play called The Merchant of Venice by Shakespeare, one of the greatest thinkers in English history. Okay, and it's all about the Jew who lends money, and he says, "I crave the law," and the Christian lady comes to him and says, "It would be better if you temper that with mercy. Be merciful, because God is merciful. The God of the," and he says, "No, I crave the law. I want my pound of flesh." because that's what this man promised. It's in the contract. I demand my pound of flesh. And the king says, okay, the Jew is right. He can have his pound of flesh. But if you take one drop of Christian blood, you're taking more than you asked for, and we're going to execute you if you do that. It's incredible. I urge everyone to watch The Merchant of Venice if you want to understand the relationship between mercy and justice, and why it's better to choose mercy. Not ignoring justice, but mercy is necessary.
What's your favorite verse of the Quran? Is it that
the first surah of the first surah, or the first sentence of the
first verse of the first chapter?
Allah, the merciful,
the most gracious, the most merciful. Yeah. Cool.
Where did that come from?
The same God as yours.
I did, but I asked. I was invited.
No, I'm just saying. You asked me a question. Where did that verse come from? From the same God as yours.
Right.
Is my answer.
You're right.
We have the same merciful God.
You're absolutely right.
Kind God, not the wrathful, the hateful God that some people depict. If of both our religions, it's not like that at all. Cool. Oh, so let's quickly go. I'm going to randomly click without thinking, because I know we've gone over time on different. I don't even know if it's sensible to click this way, but judge. Okay, that's probably not good. Not a good choice. Let's pick. Let's look first. What does that even mean? Invitation. Followers of the one God predate the Quran. Okay, you know what? I have to look more carefully. I can't actually figure out a question. Okay. Okay, let's just see. Muslim are not monotheists, but polytheists, 360 into one. I think he might possibly talking about pre-Islam, where there were 360 idols in the Kaaba, which is the center of, I don't know, the first mosque, first house of God, we describe it as. But Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, broke all of those idols. So I'm not sure why he thinks there's 360. I mean, what are your thoughts on this comment?
I have no idea what he's talking about.
What he's talking about, yeah.
I can't answer that question at all.
Okay, let's try to find. Okay, I mean, maybe bring this one up. So he's saying Ahmadi are not Muslim even. Ahmadis say Mirza. So we say the second coming of Jesus has come in the form of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad from a town called Qadian in India, and he's fulfilled all these prophecies. Let me ask you a question, because do you think Jesus' second coming will be majestic, or will it be will he come like a thief, in the night, as he's been described? His second coming has been described in the Bible, because that's
when they say it.
The reason why I bring it up, just to finish off, is because people say, who is this guy who's supposed to be the second coming of Jesus? We should all know if the second coming of Jesus came. It would be coming down the sky and everybody on the planet would know. But I'm saying that's not what the Bible says. What's your opinion?
He will come in power and majesty. He won't come like a little baby in a manger this time around. He will come in power and majesty to judge the living and the dead, and he will separate the sheep from the goats. And it will be a terrible time for those who are among the goats, and it will be a time of rejoicing for those who are among the sheep.
I would agree that there would be a power and majesty, and there were huge signs in favor of this person, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, which are actually the same. I mean, the number of, if you look at the number of earthquakes and all these other things that are the signs in the Bible, they've all been fulfilled. But also the Bible says that he'll come like a thief in the night. So there are,
I think that's referring to the time. You don't know. We don't know the day or the hour. You don't know when the thief is coming in the night. If you did, you would stay there and wait for him, but you don't know. So you don't know when he's coming, but when he comes, it will be in power and majesty to judge the living and the dead.
I would say my quick thoughts on it is that it's majestic and powerful for those who have eyes, spiritual eyes. But the time when he came, and even our time right now, is of materialists, and that's why. Tell me your thoughts on this. The Third World War has to come because people are not humble enough to follow religion. So Armageddon is essentially sort of end times that even the Bible talked about. But what we call of end times is a destruction of current civilization, so a new, greater and spiritual civilization can grow from it. What are your thoughts on that? On Armageddon, World War III? Is it necessary? Is that an Armageddon the same as World War III? Any thoughts on that?
No. I think we just what I've heard today is that that Tucker Carlson just stopped World War III. Because did you see the interview with Mike Huckabee?
Yeah.
Mike Huckabee is a disgrace. He should not be ambassador of the United States because all he represents is Israel, but all he represents is this crazy Zionist ideology, which is masquerading as theology. And Tucker Carlson exposed that. And Huckabee then said, yeah, Israel should rule over every nation in the Middle East. He outraged every single Muslim nation in the Middle East by doing that. They all protested and they all said, we are not going to support the United States. So he may have stopped World War III.
I'm trying to understand the argument. So Tucker Carlson caught him out, like many Zionists have been caught out. Why do you think that would stop World War III? They seem to be just carrying on anyway.
Because all of the Muslim nations that they need for support to attack Iran were outraged and they pulled back and they say, we're not going to support this anymore.
So because they got outraged by this one Zionist out of so many, are you saying the Emirates, who many people consider to be Trojan horse of this Israel, have changed their minds?
Well, I'm saying Saudi Arabia certainly changed their mind. Saudi Arabia wrote a letter in protest. Turkey wrote a letter in protest. Now, when you get down below that, I think Jordan wrote a letter in protest. Whether it gets down to the Emirates, I'm not sure. But I know it caused outrage among Muslim governments all over the Middle East.
Okay, cool. I'm trying to look for maybe one last question. Okay. Comment from our friend Claire. While there is more than one Abrahamic religion, there is only one. I'm not even sure. Do you understand it?
Yes, Abraham is the father of all the human race, Jews and Muslims, the children of Abraham and Christians. That's the Abrahamic God. Okay. There is no covenant. This is not a Jewish covenant. This is the Abrahamic covenant with all people. And yes, there is only one Abrahamic God. So there are more. Yeah, I agree with that statement.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time. I've gone over time as usual, but I really appreciate every single time. I think we clarify so much and we don't really debate much. There isn't too much to debate. I think we just agree on so many things, but I think it's good for viewers to understand that our religions aren't that different.
Yes. Thank you for having me. I always enjoy our conversation.
Thank you. Me too. Thank you very much. Until next time. Take care. Bye.
Peace.
Peace be upon you.
Salam.
Wa alaikum salam.